24B.
Okay, we are at 24A at the bottom. Yeah, Chav Dalet Amud Aleph. Yeah, 4 lines up from the bottom. Tashma. Okay, so we have the Mishnah that says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov talks about a case where a person says, come to eat in my house, and if not, then you're not allowed to benefit from me. And he said that it's another form of ziruzin. He just wants to get him to come to his house, and he doesn't really want to bar him from benefiting from him. So we wanted to know, do the Chachamim agree or not agree to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? And we brought a few cases yesterday in Chav Dalet Amud Aleph, and all the cases we tried to say that the Rabbanan do not agree with Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. And then in all those cases, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said, no. Actually, this case, I agree to the Rabbanan, or I guess I agree that it's not a ziruzin and it actually is a neder. So now the Gemara is going to take one last crack at it, and is actually going to show that the Chachamim do argue on Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and that is where we're up to. Tashma, 4 lines up from the bottom. Tashma, yeter alken, in addition to this, we'll see what that in addition means. In addition to this, Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. A person tells his friend, I'm making an oath not to benefit from you unless you come to my house, you are a guest by me, and you have to eat with me hot bread and drink with me hot drink. And the other guy, he was makpid, said, no, I can't come over now. I gotta, no. So, in this case, where the guy was specific, here says the Gemara, Af elu nidre ziruzin. Even this, says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, is a nidre ziruzin. He just did it in order for him to come to his house and have some hot bread and hot drink with him, but not really because he wanted to make it him asur to benefit from him if he doesn't come. But here's the key words, because now the Gemara is quoting a Tosefta, which is a Tanaic work, and the end of that quote is V'lo hodu lo chachamim. The Chachamim did not agree with Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So you see that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the Chachamim argue on him. It's like a straight up. It's not like a case, and Rabbi Eliezer said this, and what about this? Does he agree? Here it straight up says Lo hodu lo chachamim. So says the Gemara, My lo hodu lo chachamim. What does this mean? The Chachamim do not agree with him. Lav da'afilu bekamaita. Isn't it also on the first case? And we're going to see, we'll see the Ran shortly, but this is a case of yeter al-ken, meaning in addition to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah was a case, if you don't come to my house, you're not going to benefit from me. Here, it's a little bit more specific. If you don't eat at my house the hot bread and hot drink, so even if you're going a little bit more specific, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that it's nidre ziruzin. Chachamim argue, and the Gemara says, "My lo hodu lachamim." What does it mean that the Chachamim didn't agree with him? Lav da'afilu b'kamaita. Isn't it including the first case also? Our Mishnah, that they argue on it. The Shmamina we learn from here. Pligi Rabbanan ale Shmamina. Rabbanan indeed argue on Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Shmamina, that's what we learn from here. He indeed argues on Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It seems like in all the cases. Let's take a look at the Ran. It talks about Yeter Aken. In addition, we're coming to add more over here with this case of the hot drink, the hot food. Okay. Check my little notes over here. Okay. So says the Ran. Yeter al-ken amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. About 7 lines up from the bottom, 8 lines up from the bottom of the Ran. Haida amar yeter al-ken. That's said over here in addition. Mishum da'acha, because over here, afagav l'shayich l'memar lav kalba ana. even though the logic of saying I am not a dog, if you remember, the logic is a dog always receives, doesn't give. So we said that if you're always on the receiving end, so a guy could say, I'm not a dog, and I want to give as well, and therefore come over. So even though there is that logic, and that logic, we said, would make it not a ziruzin. Maybe that would make it like a real neder. So says the Ran, Hi, the Amar Yeter Alken, that he said over here, in addition, even though over here there is that logic, meaning the guy that's inviting him to eat at his house for the hot bread, hot thing, imagine this guy always ate at the other guy's house. And he says, that's it, I'm not a dog already. You eat at my house for once. Or else I'm not going to make you benefit. You're not going to benefit from me. And still the guy said, no, I'm not eating at your house. Still, even in such a case, now that we have this logic of I'm not a dog, so you might think that the neder sticks. Even in such a case, Rabbi Eliezer says it's still, he just wanted him to come over, and he didn't really want him to not benefit from his stuff, and it's not a neder. He's making the hana'ah of the one that's invited on himself asur. If he doesn't want to accept this benefit of eating at his house, you might think that he bedavka made a neder, and not an exaggeration, and not just to force him to come over. Nevertheless, it's still nidr ziruzin. The Ran continues and points out, according to this explanation, according to this now Gemara Chazin, and we see Hashta now, that we pushed off earlier, the afilu Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov modeh, that we said earlier, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov agrees, even though earlier we said Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov agrees that is a good logic. A guy could say, hey, I'm not a dog, and therefore I mean business here, I mean a real neder. Here we see that they were falling off of that. And that's the Yeter Alken. That even though there is that logic, that the guy is really saying a neder over here, nevertheless, it's still, he just wants to do ziruzin, he just wants him to come over, and he doesn't intend for him not to benefit from his stuff. Okay, so that's the Yeter Alken, and we see that the Chachamim don't agree to him. Now the Gemara says, okay, what's the halacha? Second line down, my haviyala. Okay, what's the halacha on this? Tashma, come in here. Da'amar Rav Huna, halacha ke Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Chen amar Rav Ada bar Ahava, halacha ke Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So too says Rabbi Ada bar Ahava. Halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and these cases are considered nidrei ziruzin. Let's take a look at the Ran, the right side where it says uli inyan halacha. Second one down on Chavdal Ramabed. Uli inyan halacha. When it comes to the halacha, says the Ran, kevan de afsika hilchata Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Since the halacha in the Gemara is posek like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, lefi oto pirush rishon shepirash lamala, based on the first explanation that we said earlier, which is that the logic of I'm a dog and is that you might think it's a neder, but we're saying now that it's still called neder ziruzin. I mean, there's a second pirush we didn't read, but that's not the pirush that he goes with. He goes with that first pirush. That's why I just read that pirush. So according to that pirush, dehai yoter miken, this yoter miken, Ba Lomar comes to teach us the Afagav the Ikalememar Lav Kalba'ana, even though you could say, I'm not a dog, and therefore I mean business, I mean a neder. Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Nidre Ziruzinavi. Naktina Nachi. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov still says it's a neder ziruzin, and that's our posek. Naktina Nachi, that's how we go with. The Hadrinan, and we go back on what we said earlier. Meaning like this, as we just mentioned earlier, here he says it again, and we go back from what we said earlier, that earlier we said Eliezer agrees, if a person says, hey, I'm not a dog, therefore I want you to come over to my house also, I also want to give back to you. We said over there earlier that means it's a good neder. No, according to the maskana, according to the end of the Gemara, which is here, we see that that is not a logic, and therefore a guy is still, when he says, I want to give over to you also, it's a not a neder, but it's a nidir ziruzin. I just want him to come over. Umiyu yet, but nevertheless, afagav de hadrina mitama de lav kalba'ana. Even though we go back, there's a chidush on the run now. Even though we go back on the logic of I'm not a dog, ta'ama de lav malkana, the logic of I'm not a king, which is the opposite case, akati ite. It still stays intact. Umodi Be'er Eliezer agrees to that. So, what's the logic of I'm not a king? I'm not a king is I don't always give and don't expect anything in return. I expect something in return. So a king gives and doesn't expect anything in return. Because hey, I'm not a king. I expect something in return. So this was the case of the person that made a neder on the guys. Are you going to invite me? Are you going to invite me? You better invite me, or else I'm making an neder. Why? Because I'm not a king, and I always give you, and I need to be given back also. So on that logic, or else I'm not going to benefit. You're not going to benefit from me anymore. On that logic, says the Ran, Eliezer did not go back on, and that logic of hey, I'm not a king, and therefore give me back, stays intact. If a person makes such a neder, it's a neder. It's not a neder ziruzin. And maybe we could say what's the difference? Meaning that I'm not a dog. That logic is still ziruzin. It's not a neder. I'm not a king. That logic stays intact. Because when the guy says I'm not a dog, what's happening is I want you to come over to my house. I'm not a dog that you always give me. I want to give you also. I want you to come over to my house. And if not, I'm barring you from benefiting. So there you could still say that I want you to come to my house. That I say I'm going to bar you from benefiting if you don't come is that's the whole case of ziruzin. I want you to come to my house. So I'm saying this to get you to come to my house. So it makes sense. Would say even in the case with the logic of I'm not a dog, it's still ziruzin. But in the opposite case, I'm not a king. I keep on giving you and giving you and giving you. If you're not going to invite me, then I'm not giving you anymore, and I don't want to benefit from you anymore. So that could be more realistic than like the guy, I just want you to come over already. Here it's, I'm giving you so much. I'm done with giving you unless you give me back. If you don't give me back, we're done. That makes sense to say that that's an actual neder. Because I'm always the one that's giving you. Here the other guy feels so bad, and therefore I want to give you something. You always give me so much. So here you understand. I just want you to come to my house. In the other cases, I'm giving you so much already. If you're not going to invite me, then this deal is cut off. That makes more sense to say that it's an neder. That's what the Ran is doing. He's slicing it. That even though there's a logic of hey, I'm not a dog, and therefore you come over, I want to give you also. That you could still say is ziruzin. But in the logic of I'm not a king, I keep on giving you all the time. If you're not going to give me anything back, I'm cutting you off. That you could say is an actual neder, as the Ran says. And the halakha is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov.
I don't know, it's a neder to invite somebody to your house.
But yeah, no, you make a neder. You want him to come over, or you say you better have me over. I mean, the first day that I'm not a dog is I want you to come over already. You keep on giving me so much. I want you to come over. And then, so that's understood where it's just like an exaggeration, or because I just really want him to come over already. The other case is like, I give you so much already. I'm not a king that I could just keep on giving. I want you to reciprocate. And if you don't, we're not talking anymore. That makes sense to say, hey, this guy means business. It's a neder, not just an exaggeration. Okay. Mishnah. The next the second neder of the Arba'a Nedarim. The parak's called Arba'a Nedarim. Here's neder number 2. Nidre Havai. Nidre Havai is exaggeration. Exaggeration neders. So the law of Arba'a Nedarim is they're not neders. We go with the lashon ben neder, how people talk, and exaggeration is how people talk, and therefore if you make a neder in an exaggeration form, it's not a neder. Says the Mishnah, Nidre Havai, exaggeration neders, Amar. So here's an example. Kunam im lo ra'iti b'derech zeh ke'oleh Mitzrayim. I'm making a promise on this. Let's say, I promise I'm never going to eat bread again if I didn't see on this street like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. So you didn't see that. You didn't see 600,000 men. You didn't see 3 million people. You didn't. So people exaggerate. He's like, I'm telling you, I saw so many people there. I promise you, I'm not going to eat bread anymore if I didn't see like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. He probably saw a lot of people, but he didn't see that many people. But it's a normal way to exaggerate like that. And therefore, if someone says, hey, I was counting, there wasn't the people who used to Mitzrayim, you're stuck now not eating bread. No, it was an exaggeration. You could continue eating bread. But the fact is that you had to see a lot of people. The Ram points that out. You had to actually, this had to be grounded in, you saw a lot of people and you were actually exaggerating, as opposed to you didn't see anyone and you just said this. Okay. Another case, which the Ran and the Rosh have a little bit of an argument, and this is not the only argument for today's Gemara on the Ran and the Rosh. We'll see. The second is, Im lo ra'iti nachash kekorat betabad. If I didn't see a snake like the beam of the olive press. So, picture there. Let's see. That's good.
Where?
Get closer to it. Yeah, that's a massive beam. They would use that to press down, I guess, or they would go around.
You walk around, you walk around, and it crushes it like a wheel.
Yeah. See? So, the Rosh.
We have to get that book now going for us.
Yeah. So, the Rosh explains that's also a exaggeration of not necessarily the length, but maybe the thickness of the snake. Like the size of this beam, it's like so thick. So a guy says, "Oh my gosh, you guys! I saw this crazy thick, snake. If I didn't see it, then I'm not going to eat bread anymore. This thing was like the size of like the beam from the olive press." And the guy says, "Look, I saw the snake. It wasn't that. It was thick, but it wasn't like this olive press. Still, it wasn't. It was an exaggeration. So the guy is fine. Now that's the Rosh. The Ran explains that why the Ran has a good point, meaning why did the Mishnah give 2 examples of an exaggeration? Give 1 example, and the Ran explains the second example is not an exaggeration, but it is like a absurd. Maybe you could see like an absurd claim. So he says something like, "I saw like a snake spotted, like there was spot. It seems like that's what it means. Like this beam. I don't know if there were spots on the beam, but it seems like something that's absurd, and you make a neder like that you know you don't mean what you're saying. So that's the Ran's opinion. In the end of the Rosh, it just says, with Nedarim we go with how people talk, and people talk in exaggeration, and that means they're not doing a neder, they're doing exaggeration, so we go with the exaggeration. Let's read the Ran at the beginning of the Mishnah Matnitin. It's 5 lines down in the Ran, the big one. Let's see. Nidre Havai, Nedarim of exaggeration. I'm making an oath. I'm not going to eat bread anymore if I didn't see like the amount of people left Mitzrayim. I didn't see a snake like the beam of the olive press. Nireli. It seems to me the Tana Tre Gavni Nakat. The Tana has 2 different types of cases here. One case is of Guzma, which is an exaggeration. Like the amount of people that left Mitzrayim. The Avid Inish because it is common that people, the kichazi inish tuva in shituva, when the people see many, when someone sees many people, gazim, they exaggerate. Wow, Mitzrayim. He's like, wow, there's so many people there, like the people that left Mitzrayim. V'chad, and the other type of promise over here, the other type of kunam over here, lo shayach beguzma, is not a case of, it's not connected to an exaggeration. Da'inu nachash kakurat betabad, the snake like a beam in the betabad. The kevan de mefarshina b'gemara, the lo nachash gadol kamar. We're going to see in the Gemara, not today's Gemara, but that it wasn't referring to a big snake, ela taruf, rather a spotted snake. Lo shayach lememar derech guzma. You can't say it's talking about an exaggeration case. Taruf kekorat betabad, and shum nachash taruf klal, because there's no nachash that's spotted. I don't know, but it's something that's absurd. Like, oh my gosh, I saw this thing. I don't fully get this, because like, what are you comparing it to the betabad then? Is it comparable? Is it not comparable? You're just saying something that's totally off, so therefore it's totally off. So it's like, okay, this guy's off, and he's not making a neder, he's just off. I don't know. Bashmina Tana dechitala isur perot bechad mehani nidro batel. So the Tana is teaching us, if you connect this, let's say, to isur perot, I'm not eating fruits if I saw the amount of people that left Mitzrayim, and if not, I'm telling you, I saw that amount of people. If not, then it's like I'm not eating fruits anymore. So the guy still is exaggerating. Each one has its own reasoning why it's batel. I like perot, even though ראיתי בדרך הזה קודם מצרים. בדינו דלא ליצרו עליה דקושטה כאמר. He is saying the truth somewhat, but it's with an exaggeration. He saw many people. People, it's common for them to exaggerate. When in these type of situations. When he says, I didn't see a snake, like the beam of the olive press. The fruits are also mutar, for a different reason. Even though for sure he's saying a lie, because you can't see such a snake like this. It's for sure a lie. Because even in an exaggeration, you can't say this. Nevertheless, the perot are allowed. Because we omed is that, what's the word for omed is that? We judge his mind. We estimate what he's saying. He's not coming to asur the perot on himself. He didn't want that in his statement. Because if he wanted to make those fruits asur on himself, just say they're asur on me. He wouldn't have made such a weird condition. Just make them asur on yourself, just straight up. אין לתנאו עניין שדבר ברור שלא לא ראה נחש כזה. It's very obvious, he didn't see such a snake. שאין בין עושה סתם למתנה וכיוצא בזה כלום. אלא ודאי אמרנו שלא לעשות פירות בה, אלא לומר דברי הווי. זה כלומר שראה נחש כקורת בית. He just wanted to say something that doesn't make sense. I'm not getting it so well. He just wanted to say, like, oh my gosh, I saw this crazy snake, like the thing of an olive press. Like, what's the connection to that? We don't know. So you're saying something crazy, and therefore the fruits, you don't want to talk, you don't want to make your fruits really asur on yourself. You just want to, I don't know if it's not even an exaggeration. Maybe the art school said shed some light. Brings the last case that like a Gemara says a guy makes a shavua. I saw a flying camel, so we know that the guy isn't like lying. So therefore, if he makes a shavua, so the whole shavua is batel, and whatever he said is asur. Is like I'm telling you, it's so true. Like I saw a flying camel. I don't know. Maybe back in the day they had different expressions. In the Gemara time, people had different expressions. Does anything shed any more light over there on the second shot? The Rosh to me is simple, that it's just another exaggeration, like the thickness of it. But the only thing is, which the question is, why does the Mishnah have to bring two examples? The Mishnah doesn't waste words. Anything more on the art school over there? Take a quick look.
Saying something about like oaths of
The simile is not exaggerated, but false. You remember looking through the meaning is that he has seen a snake whose back is ridged like the beam of an olive press, and no such snake exists. Thus the devourer has made an absurd assertion, which he seeks to bolster by forbidding the fruits to himself if it is untrue. Nedarim of absurdity. Since, however, his assertion is patently untrue, the Kohen does not take effect. He did not mean to render his fruits forbidden from himself. For had he had that intent, he should have just simply declared the fruits are asur to me. Rather, he meant to use a statement of konam as a way of lending a measure of credence to his absurd assertion. Thus, the second example of the Mishnah teaches us that since it is clear that he did not mean to forbid the fruits of himself, but meant only to bolster his patently absurd claim, the konam does not take effect. So the guy said, I saw this rigid snake, telling you like the thing of the beam of the beam has nothing to do with the snake. I don't know, the guy was absurd. The guy was off. And I'm telling you to prove my point. I saw such a snake. I'm not going to eat any fruits because that snake was like that beam. But it was a lie. Like it wasn't compared to the beam. Not an exaggeration. Just totally not compared. So he just wanted to try using something to prove your point that you saw such a snake, and you had no intention to asur the fruits on yourself, and therefore the fruits are still going to be allowed to you. Okay, that's the second type of neder according to the Ran, an absurd type of neder. Let's go to the Gemara. Tana, nidre havai mutarin, shvuot havai asurin. Tana teaches us, nedarim of exaggeration are allowed. A shavua of exaggeration is asur. What's a case of a shavua that is exaggeration? If you're going to say a shavua, if I'm making a shavua, if I didn't see on this path the amount of Yotzei Mitzrayim, asks the Gemara, mida'am ka'amar? Mida'am is like, did he say anything? Meaning, when it comes to shavua, you need to make a shavua on an item. You can't just say a shavua in the air. I'm making a shavua that I saw this amount of people. So the Gemara answers, yeah, we are talking about physical item. It's going on my eyes. So you could, like this, we've had this differentiation before. That you have to pin it to a physical thing. I'm making a shavua that my eyes, my physical eyes, saw this. Okay, so it's just a way how to say that this is a shavua. Shavua is more stringent, and the Gemara says shavua is more stringent, and therefore it would make. You said I'm making a shavua that I saw this amount of people, and if not, then my fruits are going to be asur to me. If it's not true, the fruits are indeed asur, as opposed to a neder. Amar le Rava, imken lama li lememar. Rava says, okay, what's the chidush? Fine, you said a shavua, it's going to be asur. Why wouldn't it be? Ve'od dumya de neder ktani. Also, oh no, I'm sorry. So when Abaye said shavua sheraiti, it's not a shavua on a negative, but rather shavua on a positive. Shavua that I saw it. Shavua that I saw. Usually shavua is on, like I'm making a shavua that I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to eat meat if this didn't happen. So what's the shavua over here? A positive one. A shavua that I saw. Rava then says, well, what's the chidush? So fine, the shavua is not good, and the shavua sticks. But if you're comparing it to neder, that's the second question. Oh, dumya the neder ktani. If If we're comparing it to a neder, then the neder over here says you're oser the fruits. What are you oser if you say I'm making a shavua that I saw? How are you comparing it to neder? Because we started by saying nidre havai mutarin, shavuot havai asurin. An exaggerated neder is mutar, an exaggerated shavua is asur. How do we get the case of shavua? Shavua that I saw. I'm making a shavua that I saw these amount of people. You didn't say anything that something's going to be asur to you. How are you comparing it to neder? Neder is I make a neder that I saw this amount of people, and if not, then I'm not going to be able to eat my fruits. But it seems that that's not the follow through when it comes to shavua. You're just saying a shavua that I saw this. Based on this question, says the Rava, Elam Rava, Beomer, Yesru Perot HaOlam Alai B'Shavua, Im Lo Ra'iti Bezeh Ke'olam Mitzrayim. Okay, the Gemara fixes it up. It was going through a back and forth of technically how does it work out with a Shavua, and it comes out to the conclusion that we said earlier that he is coming to Asur himself, and that's why it's in line with a neder. As the Rava says, the guy says, I'm going to make these perot Asur to me forever if I'm making a Shavua if I didn't see the people that came out of Mitzrayim, like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim, and it's going on my eyes. So that's similar to the case of neder. So if it's a case of an exaggerated neder, the neder does not work. An exaggerated shavua sticks. Shavua is something that's very very heavy, and you don't play around with shavuas. Therefore, you make an exaggerated shavua. Sorry, the shavua sticks, not a neder. Okay. Amar le Ravina le Ravashi. Ravina tells Ravashi, Vidilma hai kina deshum shemani chaza. Maybe this guy, he came back in, he came into the house. He says, oh my gosh, I saw like the amount of people who came out of Mitzrayim. So the assumption was that he's talking about people. Says the Gemara, maybe he's talking about ants. He saw so many ants, like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. So the guy says, Vidilma gavra kina deshum shemani chaza. Maybe he saw a bunch of ants. V'azik leon shema ole Mitzrayim. V'shapir mishtava. Maybe it's a good neder because it's like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. He sees thousands, millions of them. And maybe he's indeed saying something true. This is the Gemara on top of the next page. Amar le ki mishtava. He told him back, when a person makes an oath, adata dedidan mishtava. They're making it with the logic of people. They're saying it in front of people, and we're going with the logic of people. Ve'anan lo maskina nafshin ashum shemani. And we don't, our logic doesn't go to ants. When a person comes and says, oh my gosh, I saw like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. You're talking about people that came out of Mitzrayim? Then our logic goes to you saw people. No one says that, oh my gosh, I saw millions of ants, like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. You're talking ants to people? That's not normal logic. And therefore, we ruled out that explanation.
I thought they were talking about numbers. The people came out from Egypt, 600,000.
Yep.
It will be very difficult to actually see that kind of number. But when you look at ants, very small one, you will see 600,000 with your two eyes.
So you can't count them.
Yeah, yeah.
600,000
You can try.
Where did you see?
in meetings that I actually witnessed over 1 million people.
What do you mean? You were in a building? In the
No, I was
building?
top of like I was at the fourth floor of the building, and there was 1 million people in there.
In like a rally?
Like a
a
march?
Demonstration?
Yeah, demonstration. In Turkey.
In Turkey?
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
You can see that. It's huge crowd, once in a history time, but happens.
There's a bracha to say if you see the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. If you see 600,000, I think 600,000 Jews, there's a bracha to say.
I'm pretty sure there were 600 Jews.
They're not Jews. There's 1,000 Jews. And there was once, when I was in Israel, there was some sort of rally that the rabbi said everyone should go to. They called it 1 million people march. I think it was to march against forced conscripting soldier, yeshiva boys to the army. and they say a million people came out, and there's a debate if you're up high, should you say the bracha, shouldn't you say the bracha, can you see them off, what if you see part, and the other part you know is there, but you can't see them? There's a discussion about it. Yes, I hear what you're saying, that, but it seems like the Lashon B'nei Adam is when a person, if he doesn't say ants in the story, he says, oh my gosh, I saw like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. Your logic goes to people. And you're like, what, you saw that many people? No, I saw ants. Tell us you saw ants. So if because that's the thing. If the guy says I saw ants, okay, that's what you said you saw. So now we can't argue about it. It's, oh my gosh, I saw like the amount of people that came out of Mitzrayim. We're going to think people. That's the Lashon B'nei Adam, is our logic goes to people. That's why we're ruling out ants. Unless he says ants, if he doesn't say ants, we don't think he's talking about ants. Okay, so that brings to the end of the Gemara. But I just do want to say that the Ran over here has a different girsa, and we won't delve into it fully. But if you see in the Ran where the Gemara starts, which is Gemara, 12 lines up from the bottom, Kach shvuot havai mutarot. Kach shvuot havai mutarot. Our Gemara, and the Rosh has our Gemara as well, our Gemara says, exaggerated Nedarim, Nedarim havai mutarim, shvuot havai asurim. The Ran says, Kach shvuot havai mutarot. So it's totally opposite. Ours says Nedarim, of exaggerated Nedarim, mutar. Shavuot, exaggerated, asur. The Ran says Nedarim are mutar and Shavuot are mutar. So both that they're both mutar. That's how he has the girsa. Because if it's a guzma, it's a guzma. If it's an exaggeration, it's an exaggeration. It doesn't matter, even though a shavuot is something more strong. You don't play around with it. Nevertheless, an exaggeration is an exaggeration. But that's the girsa that he has. And the Ran on Chaf Hei Amud Aleph, the first Ran there, also quotes something that's not in our Gemara. El Amar Rava leolam de Amar Shvuayim lo ra'iti lav Amar Rav Amram. There's no Rav Amram over here. Rav Amram is later on. The Ran continues, Klomar dechi echi dehatam later on Chaf Chet. Tanina she'af b'shuvah lo macharinan le'esor perot alav kedarin lekaman. Rav Amram's opinion is that Shavuah of exaggeration is not a Shavuah, it's mutar. And according to the Ran's girsa, according to the way the Ran has the Gemara, it's coming to include Rav Amram's statement over here. And that's why a Shavuah is mutar. What? Okay. Yeah, so the Ran has a different girsa, and he backs it up with according to his girsa, Rav Amram also, we're going to see later, it says Shvuah also, exaggerated Shvuah is mutar. But our girsa, and the Rosh has our girsa, is that Shavuot Havai is asur, and the neder of Havai is mutar. And the last piece is what the Gemara next time, which was what will be Tuesday night. It's Chol HaMoed. So if some family coming and this, if things get rocky with schedule, I'll post and maybe we'll have to make it up. But for now, let's set Tuesday night of Chol HaMoed, which we'll start off on the second line, which is going to be saying that we said that we don't talk about ants, meaning we go with what people, the logic of people. When it comes to what you say, oh my gosh, I saw like the Yotze Mitzrayim, we go with what the people would think that means. So the Gemara is going to ask, do we indeed go with the logic of people or not when it comes to what you say? And then the Gemara is going to discuss that. Okay, Chazak Baruch.